Everybody, and welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared Berenstein. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. I am here to answer your questions about politics. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, and I know that politics can be particularly weird to try to figure out these days with all of the misinformation and propaganda that is running rampant out there. So, this is the show where you can ask all of your questions, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or something in between or something on the outskirts. So long as you're asking in good faith, you will get a good faith response. D. Scott says, howdy. Howdy back, D. Scott. Brom says, communism or capitalism? Well, Brom, in America and in a bunch of other countries, we have a mixed model. So we have some communism here in America, we have some socialism here in America, and we have a lot of capitalism here in America. Some might say too much, and I'm one of those people. And maybe we could balance that out with a little more communism, a little more socialism. But yeah, there's no country that is exclusively capitalist or exclusively communist or exclusively socialist. Christian says Mamdani is a socialist. No, he's not. He is a democratic socialist. There's a difference. Excellent questions to start off with. What's up, JP? GM? What do you mean? I've always heard GM refer to general manager. That's from my years in the restaurant industry. Brom says nothing communist about the USA. That's not true, Brom. There are employee-owned companies here in America, and that is what communism is. So companies like Publix or Bob's Red Mills that are owned by the employees, that is communism. That's all that communism is. A lot of people fearmonger about communism, saying that it's, it's like Russia or Venezuela or Cuba, but it's literally just employees owning the means of production. What's up, Triska? Good to see you again. Moyri says, does politics matter more or geopolitics? I mean, I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs here. There are things about global politics that affect domestic politics, but you can't address those things unless you get your domestic politics in check. Like we have a really shitty State Department right now. We have very bad international politics. We have bad diplomacy. We are warmongering, saber rattling, losing trade wars left and right. So yeah, in order to fix geopolitics, we have to solve domestic politics. Hugh Young says, who do you think should be the next president? I don't really wish cast for 28. I think we should be focused on 26. Christian says, when you think it can't get worse, it gets worse. Democratic socialist. Christian, ask a question, or I'm going to boo you. D. Scott says, isn't American Airlines still owned by the employees? I didn't know that American Airlines was owned by employees. I got to give that a Google. Brom says, is National Socialism better than those two? So if I'm remembering correctly, Brom, National Socialism is what Hitler and the Nazi parties, that was the name of their political movement. So no, that is not good. Rich Poor says, do you think Biden was perfect? Oh no, absolutely not. He's one of the least perfect human beings on the planet, but he was a pretty good president. Fletch Lives Again says, can pardons ever be undone? I do not believe so. I think that maybe there could potentially be a review process in the future based on some of the pardons that are literally just based in payoffs and corruption, like in the Trump administration. But I don't believe there's a mechanism for undoing pardons as the moment. Moyri says, do you think Garfield would have been a progressive president? I don't know enough about Garfield to comment on that. Likely says, what's the difference between socialism and socialist? I mean, a socialist is somebody who believes in socialism. Rich Boris says, fair enough. Thank you. Brom says, exterminate the juice. What the hell does that mean? Oh, I know what that means. All right, Brom, you're out of here. Congratulations. I don't truck with anti-Semitism on my live stream. Okay, John Abbott, good to see you again. JP says capitalism does not mean markets, it means who owns the lands. Accurate. Good morning. Good morning. And JP, you don't have to apologize for being involved in the Discord. We're happy that you are there. John Abbott says American Airlines is publicly traded, not employee owned. Okay. Likely says, so your view is Zohran Mamdani is a good or bad mayor? So he's not a mayor yet. He just got elected. We haven't even seen what kind of mayor he is. He's an excellent politician. He ran an excellent campaign. I believe in a lot of the policies, and I believe in the agenda of what he's trying to do in New York City. But we don't know what kind of a mayor he's going to be because his tenure has not started yet. Johnny, that is not a question about politics. Rich Poor says, do you think we need a younger president who isn't in their 80s? 100%, Rich Poor. Abso-fucking-lutely. Ledger T Balance. There's a lot of companies that are employee owned really aren't. They just have ESOPs. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I've not gotten into the nuts and bolts of it. I just think that employee owned companies are better because more of the profits and benefit of the labor goes to the actual employees. B. Haugia says, we have the president we need. That's not a question, B. Haugie. So ask a question. Lipper says, when Pete Buttigieg make a good candidate, I mean, Pete Buttigieg is an incredible communicator. There is some worry that America is still too homophobic to elect a president who is gay. But and in progressive circles, he's seen as more of a centrist, and so not exactly the ideal candidate for people like me. But I would be perfectly happy voting for Buttigieg for president. I wouldn't support him in the primary necessarily, depending on who else was running, but I would definitely vote for him. And thank you very much to everybody who helped me reach my first gift goal. Triska says, how do we get billionaires out of politics? Doesn't seem possible. It is 100% possible, Triska, and there are a bunch of policies. I think there's a bunch of policies that we could begin implementing depending on even just who's president. We wouldn't even need Congress in order to start limiting the power of billionaires in government. Dan Blackbird, thank you for helping me reach my gift goal. Let me see if I can wrap my brain around a couple of those policy ideas. So like number one, undoing Citizens United. I believe we could do that via constitutional amendment or potentially just legislation. Having somebody like Lena Khan staffed at the FTC breaking up monopolies would potentially limit the number of billionaires that exist and therefore limit their influence in politics. Staffing the election campaign finance board with people that are actually going to enforce campaign finance regulations, passing laws that criminalize certain financial contributions, certain political ads. There's all sorts of things that we can do. Okay, Pam says, you're not Zionist, are you? So Pam, I do not believe that I am a Zionist in the way that you just define Zionist. But one of the problems that I have with words like Zionist is that different people have different definitions. So I believe that the people currently living in Israel have a right to stay there, but I do not believe that what Israel is doing to their neighboring countries is okay. In fact, I think it's barbaric, cruel, illegal, a war crime, a genocide, all the negative things that people see about it. Gabriel, hey bro, no see. Are you a fan of the stream or do I know you in real life? East meets West, great to see you again. Lisa says, then who's going to pay for all the welfare benefits? So Lisa, the reason why we have to tax billionaires right now is because we have an inequitable economic system where they have all of the resources. If we had a more equitable economic system, if income inequality was less drastic than it is right now, you wouldn't need to have high taxes because there'd be more people with money. And so more people with money means fewer people using welfare programs, but also more people paying more tax revenue into the system to support those programs. Right now, we have a system where 11 people basically finance the government, because those are the billionaires. And there's a significant amount of tax revenue that comes from the bottom 99%. But if we're talking about individual citizens, these people have an outsized influence not only on who gets elected, but then what happens when the government is in full effect. And what I'm saying, and what a lot of people who are on the progressive side of things are saying, is that with a more equitable financial system, we remove the power of the top 1% and we make it so that it's everything in the government is much more community funded, because you have more people that are able to fund the government because more people have money, and you have fewer people needing things like welfare because more people have money, and so they won't need that assistance. Are you still here, Lisa? Did you hear? Lisa says, but yet it was okay for them to do that to Israel. What exactly does that mean, Lisa? I'm starting to suspect that you're not here in good faith, Lisa. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach my second gift goal, Jewelry with Power and Triska. Thank you so much. All right, Pam says, how do you feel about all of the tax money given to Israel every year more than any other country? I'm against it, Pam. I very much am. We already have a law on the books that says we are not allowed to send money and weapons to countries whose government are guilty of doing war crimes and genocide. And so I say, let us 100% let's 100% stop sending them that money so that we can adhere to our own law. Space Plums over on Twitch says, here's my question. If MAGA is so hell-bent on bombing narco terrorists, why isn't Trump bombing the grave of George Bush Sr.? Yeah, I know he's already dead, but that's beside the point. We're talking about Trump here. That's pretty funny, Space Plum. I like that. All right, Punny McPunderson says, there was a fire drill at my IKEA today. We all assembled in the parking lot. That's very funny. I like you too, Pam. BitNevo says, do you think Elon Musk and the tech oligarchs know that they may go to prison via RICO charges? I think that they recognize that they have done illegal things. Now, with Trump and Republicans in control of the government, they are essentially fully shielded from any legal accountability for all of the things that they have done. That's the reason why Steve Bannon went out there during that one thing and was like, we need to keep winning elections or a lot of us in this room are going to jail. And thank you very much to everybody who helped me reach my third gift goal, Spiritually Sexy Jewelry, probably Rob, Bob, and Triska. Y'all are the goats. So yeah, what they're hoping is that their money and influence will sway elections. And if it doesn't sway elections, they hope that they will be able to corrupt the legal process to the point where they can escape accountability. Failing that, they will try to use their money to delay legal accountability until, I don't know, they're dead or something, until they get a new government that'll pardon them for all of their sins and shit like that, you know? Money can solve a lot of problems for these guys, you know? So what we need to do is we need to stop this pattern from happening. We need to start taxing the billionaires and holding them legally accountable for their crimes so that we do not end up in a world where these guys are literally hunting us for sport. And if they get caught, then they don't go to jail. All right. Sparnacle Boy Burner says, thoughts on Trump giving Clinton crazy town? We don't have any evidence that it actually happened. Mac Goo says, any thoughts on AI and what it's going to do to the environment? Not sure if this is political. Oh, it's totally political. So there are a lot of concerns that we have about AI, spreading misinformation, job replacements, energy policy in regards to who's paying for these massive electric bills. Are there going to be brownouts and blackouts in various areas where these data centers exist? There are health risks, which we were just learning, like Jeff Bezos gave an entire town like a form of rare cancer because of the chemicals from the data center. So what are we going to do about all this stuff? Well, the key is you need to have adults in government who are going to make unbiased decisions based on what is good for the majority of Americans. Like, is it fair that citizens in Virginia are paying over market rate for their electricity just because there happens to be a data center there that is sucking up all of the excess energy, and now it is, you know, there's an energy deficit, and so now prices are running at a premium? No, that's not fair. What are we going to do about it? All of these companies are now making billions and billions more in profits, and now and because they don't have to hire workers anymore, and now there's a ton of people who are out of work. What is the policy that is going to solve that problem? How do we make sure that artificial intelligence chatbots are not giving people false political information and influencing elections? You know, some of these questions are easy to answer. Like, obviously, if a fucking AI company is making billions of dollars off of AI, then they should be footing the electric bill. And if a company is making record profits because they fired all of the workers in exchange for an AI workforce, then they should pay higher taxes to support either retraining all of those employees or welfare benefits so that they don't fucking starve to death while they're looking for a new job, or, you know, even universal basic income and universal healthcare, shit like that. And some of them are a little bit more complicated. Like, what are the metrics that we use that decide what's real and what's fake? Like, how can we decide if this chatbot gave inaccurate information? Who's policing that? Is the company responsible for it? Like, that's a little bit more complicated. The problem that we have right now is that our government is entirely partisan. It is a government for Trump by Trump. It is designed for him and his buddy to escape legal liability and to rob and steal and do bribes and corruption all day long and all night long. And so none of these questions are going to get answered. None of these problems are going to get solved until we actually have some fucking adults in the room. Okay, excellent question. D. Scott says, can you speak on these newborn savings account? It hurts my head how they're being funded by the My Pillow guy. So I don't know a ton about it. I, am guilty of seeing the headline and then saying I'll read that later. But there was an article, I think maybe in the Atlantic, that was like, this is a policy that is being sold as for the children that is just going to be a giveaway to the billionaire class. And I don't have all the details, unfortunately, because again, I need to go read the article. Rob Bob says, morning, sir. Thoughts on Hegseth's actions and him maybe hopefully getting canned? I mean, if we lived in a just world, then he would be in jail. And the people below him who helped facilitate that order would at the very least be forced to resign. I have some sympathy for the people in the armed services who, are going along to get along and maybe are doing things that are legally dubious because they feel like they have to keep their job and shit like that. But that does not mean that they can escape all accountability. But Pete Hegseth is a fucking disgusting human being who knew exactly what the fuck he was doing and does not give a shit about the lives that he is just like erasing for no fucking reason. Him and everybody who's facilitated this policy of just murdering people in the middle of the ocean if they are a boat coming from Venezuela, like they should 100% all be going to jail. Whether or not that will happen is an open question. It has to do with how the midterms go. It has to do with how these congressional hearings go. It has to do with political pressure that we put on people that are elected, even if they're Republican. So long as you're living in their district, you have power over them. So yeah, I don't believe that anybody can make that prediction, unfortunately. Alrighty, excellent questions so far today. Dazed and Confused says, yes, Biden was disgusting. I mean, I'm not going to say there weren't things about Biden that were disgusting, but he's definitely a way better president than what we currently have. El Toro says, will Portland have more than 1 million residents in 10 years? I have no idea about that. Kate the Grateful says, did you see new lawsuit against Trump about stealing intellectual property? I have not seen that, Kate the Grateful. I'm going to have to give that a Google. Okay. Grande says, and we need AIPAC and Israel out of our politics. Grande, are you still here? Let me know. I have a response for you about AIPAC. Steve Watton says, how frigid must Hillary have been to accept? All right, I'm done with that question. Chris says, why do we care anymore? Because we can have a better world, Chris. Our lives can be easier, yours and mine. We don't have to live our lives worrying that our air is poisoning us and our water is deadly and our medicines aren't safe to take and our food isn't safe to eat. We don't have to be worrying about, are we ever going to be able to afford a home? Or what if something happens to me healthcare wise? Is it completely going to devastate me financially? We can have a better country. We can have better lives. We can have a better world. So yeah, that's why we care. Boatsy says that's what RFK Jr. is doing. No, he is not. RFK Jr. is a fraud and a liar, Boatsy. I am happy to get into more of those details with you. Let's see here. Grande 001, I'm still waiting for you to respond to my comments. It's almost like you popped in here to just slander Jewish lobbying organizations and not any other. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Chris says, I disagree. It has become crystal clear that nobody up there cares about us. That is inaccurate, Chris. And I'm sorry that you've been given that impression based on the media that you've consumed. But there are a lot of people in politics up and down the ballot who care about doing right for their constituents. Politicians are people. They're just like you and I, and they make mistakes, and some of them are real pieces of shit. And it is up to us to vote for better people. And that is the way that we get a government that cares about us and actually, provides a better life for us. Optics Nerd says, is capitalism inevitable? Is post-capitalism possible? Yes, 100% post-capitalism impossible, and capitalism is not inevitable. Eli says, why do politicians care so much about visiting Israel? So Israel, and by extension AIPAC, the lobby that uses American billionaire dollars to try to influence American policy to be more in line with Israel's domestic policy, they're very powerful. And there are a lot of excellent politicians who have lost their elections or primaries because of AIPAC funding their primary candidates or funding a super PAC to take them down. Accusations of anti-Semitism can be very powerful in ruining campaigns. And so, yeah, a lot of politicians have seen the history of Israel and AIPAC's involvement in our elections and thought, I want to be in the room to make good decisions. But if I have to, bend the knee to Israel and AIPAC in order to get there, then, I got to do what I got to do. There are a lot of weird incentive structures in American politics where, in California, we don't believe in gerrymandering, but we had to gerrymander to counter the Republican gerrymandering. Otherwise, we would not be playing on a level playing field. There are a lot of politicians out there who do not want to be taking money from AIPAC or other lobbying organizations or billionaires or giant corporations, but in order to mount a successful campaign, they have to, knowing that it will probably mean watering down some legislation in the future should they get into power. Part of the reason why I support the Democratic Party is because they're the only ones who are trying to change this structural issue with American politics, in that if you have a lot of money, you are able to get outcomes that the rest of us are not. And while the Democratic Party isn't perfect, they're the ones doing that work, whereas the Republican Party is trying to undo all of our legislation limiting campaign finance contributions, giving more power to lobbying organizations, making corruption and bribery more illegal. Like, it's fucking disgusting. And so if you don't like those things the way that I don't like those things, then 100% we should all be voting for Democrats. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach my 4th gift goal today, Murph Meister and Triska. Y'all are the goats. Okay, the Man of Oz says, are any presidents real people? They're all real people. Mr. McFudge says, does President Donald Trump secretly play accordion with former President Kamala Harris? No, I do not believe so. I do not believe that Donald Trump involves himself with people of color any more than he has to, because he is a racist. Okay, Lord Nazgul says, your economic condition determines your political and social condition. I don't see the economic improving anytime soon. I mean, not with Republicans in charge, but, we could have a different government that makes it so that we can all have better economic lives. Okay, Truman PS says, are any presidents not war criminals? That's a really good question, Truman, and I gotta be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, not off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Seth says, any updates on the Trump administration committing war crimes? They be doing it. Seth, there's your updates. Brethren says, can you believe communism works under totalitarian rule? So communism, if a country is totalitarian, dictatorship, authoritarian, whatever word you want to use, then it's not communist. Communist is workers owning the means of production. It is the closest thing to a representative democracy. We've literally never seen a fully communist country. We've only seen authoritarian countries calling themselves communist. I'm not sure if a fully communist country would work. I think that countries work better under a mixed model, some capitalism, some socialism, some communism. Yeah, I think that the totalitarianism and communism are, mutually exclusive. They don't exist together. Boatsy says, oh my fucking God, I'm out. Cool. Well, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Truman says, oh damn, you're based. Thank you, Truman. Let's see here. Communism, bro, I thought you were smart. Yeah, Boatsy, no one's gonna miss you. Hey, Fee Holly, good to see you again. Says, keep up this kind of content, man. Even as a Republican, I respect you. I'm so glad to have you here, Hey Fee Hollick. Do you still consider yourself a Republican, even after all the shit that's currently going on? Let me know. I want to get into some of your political ideologies. Man of Oz says, has the whole Charlie Kirk thing gone away? What happened to the alleged shooter? As far as I know, the Man of Oz, like, the criminal justice system is operating regularly with regards to that fella. Sometimes it is stunning to me how long, the process of, finishing a trial can take. Like, the fact that Luigi Mangioni's case has still not been settled is bananas to me. And so, yeah, I forget the name of the person who shot Charlie Kirk. But yeah, I mean, I have no idea when we're going to start seeing any information about that trial or anything. Let's see here. Happy Holic says just a Republican, not MAGA level. Okay, well, what is it that makes you Republican and not a Democrat? H3MMI7 says, I'm a Republican, but I don't support Trump. I'm happy to hear that, H3MMI7. But again, same question to you. Why do you call yourself a Republican and not a Democrat? Truman says, what experiences or events in your life would you say radicalized your politics the most? Definitely dealing with the healthcare industry. I was a waiter for 12 years, and I, out of nowhere, needed some pretty extensive medical care, and I was going to have to pay for it out of pocket unless I signed up for my restaurant's health insurance. But I had just missed the enrollment of it, and so I needed to wait. I think like 8 months in order to get this medical care, and then for 8 months I was just like in agony and constantly worried and having to take on additional expenses because of like other things that I was doing to make up for the health issues that I was suffering from. I finally signed up for the healthcare. Finding a doctor after that was fucking Homeric. It was Sisyphean. It was fucking a nightmare. I eventually found one, and you need your referring doctor, and you need to fax your references and your 859 form, and that needs to be filled out in triplicate, and just blah blah blah. And then the appointments are weeks away, months away, shit like that. When I finally got my appointment, they didn't cover the procedure that I needed. And I was like ready to start Molotov cocktailing, health insurance buildings, So yeah, obviously I didn't do that because I am not in jail. But yeah, that was part of a number of things that happened to me in my life. That was like something fucking needs to change here. Okay. The Man of Oz says, do you think JD Vance and Erica Kirk will get together? I mean, it kind of looks like that, but we're entering into like Real Housewives territory where it's just like some messy gossip bullshit that's happening. It's like these people are they're just sloppy, So yeah, these are not the kind of people that I want running the country. Okay, Average Joe says, how much longer do you think the House will stay in fuck Mike Johnson mode? As an aside, his religious hypocrisy and his bullshit pastor want to be a haircut angers me beyond reason. The Speaker of the House is one of the hardest jobs in politics, particularly for Republicans, because the House is where you get the most cuckoo bananas, Republican politicians. And so balancing out them, and they're very strong lobby, like they have a lot of power, with the more reasonable Republicans, turns people who normally would be regular people, like John Boehner or the fuck's the dude's name? I'm forgetting all the regular ones. It turns them into the worst version of Republicans. Now, I'm not saying Mike Johnson is a good guy. Far from it. I think he's one of the worst ones that we've had. But I also am like, yeah, I get it. The Republican House Speaker is going to be hated. I don't think there's going to be any substantive change to the power dynamics there. Like, I don't think he's going to be ousted. I don't think that, he's not going to be able to bring certain things to the floor. There are going to be discharge petitions for things that he doesn't like, the same way that there were for the Epstein files. But I think that's probably going to be the end of it. We all have to lower our expectations for accountability for people in the Trump orbit. Truman PS says, what do you think is the best way to bring about class consciousness in the U.S.? We need to do the work, Truman. People like you and me. We cannot trust social media. We can't, you can make a video that goes mega viral. It's going to be forgotten in 2 days. But we need real structural communication that is happening on a grassroots level. If you know the organization Swing Left, they have started an initiative right now called Ground Truth, which I link to on my Discord page. And they are, in my opinion, fixing door knocking and canvassing, where they're starting now. They're not starting like a week before the election, where you just show up to somebody's house and you go, hey, who are you voting for? Cool, mark it down on my clipboard. And 90% of the time, you knock on a door and nobody's home, so you just leave a fucking flyer for your candidate and hope for the best. They are actually talking to people. They're figuring out what they care about. They're figuring out what problems they have. They're trying to find solutions to those problems. They're advocating for politicians who are laser focused on those solutions. And so if you want to be a part of that process, if you want to be somebody who's bringing about class consciousness in the United States, I would highly recommend you looking into ground truth and potentially picking up some volunteer shifts yourself. Okay. Richard Chapman says Paul Ryan. He was a House Speaker, but he actually wasn't the one I was thinking of. I was thinking of Kevin McCarthy. Let's see here. Scrolling up. Murph Miser says, aren't they thinking of dropping most of Mangrove's case due to Miranda rights? So I'm not sure what can get thrown out because of how his arrest was handled, but it's not looking great for the prosecution. It would be bananas if he got off, Yeah, I think the rhetoric around Mangione is hilarious because it's like we all hate health insurance executives. And so we're all doing that thing of like, no, he was with me the whole time. He's a good guy. Like what are we talking about? But, murder is fucking murder. So, if he did murder somebody, he should go to jail. Like that's just, yeah, we do. I guarantee you, as much as you hate the person that's getting murked, we do not want to live in a world where people that do murder get off scot-free. Like that is just bad news up and down the aisle. Kate the Grateful says, why are progressives labeled as radical? I don't get it. Because people with a lot of money who can influence our cultural conversation, they are incentivized to paint progressives as radical so that people don't vote for them. Alien says, what happens if Mamdani isn't able to fund his transition? That is a really good question, Ali, and I'm really not 100% sure about that. I haven't read anything about him having trouble funding his transition. Like he's doing, small dollar donations to fund the transition the same way that he funded the campaign, and he's very popular, so I'd have to imagine that he wouldn't have a problem with that. All right, Hammy7 says, my all-time favorite president is Ronald Reagan. Only bad thing that he did was war on drugs. Hammy, I would love to get into other bad things that Reagan did, Alrighty. And Truman, yes, my health is much, much better these days. It's been a long road, but we're in a much better place. Okay. Robbo says pin Discord in chat. I honestly don't know how to do that. I got a complicated setup over here, but the link to my Discord is in my bio. So I would say if you're interested in checking out the Discord, go check out my bio. And just say this, the Discord is one of my favorite resources because not only is it a way to get in touch with me, but there's a community of people there that all also love this show, and not everybody agrees politically. So, there is the potential for good faith discussions there as well, but also there are great recommendations there for books and podcasts and great organizations to donate your time and money to. Okay, John G. Fisher says, I just want my health insurance cheaper and gas not tax 33 cents a gallon and $3,000 per year in property. So John G. Fisher, I don't know what your financial situation is, but I can guarantee you that a Democrat in office will most likely reduce your tax burden and increase it on the billionaire and millionaire class. If you're a millionaire or a billionaire and you're complaining about your health insurance being cheaper, I gotta say, fucking world's smallest violin right here. But 99% of people will benefit by Democratic policies, and even billionaires will benefit. They'll have less money, which they're going to be crying on their fucking golden yachts about that shit. But their lives will be better because other people are not suffering. Like there are knock-on effects to people not dying in the street. Ron Ellis says, yeah, you're definitely still reading off the script sheet. Good puppet boy. That's not a question and also not accurate. Everything I say is coming off the dome. And I think I should get more credit for that because fucking spitting today, guys. I'm like fucking Eminem, only good politics. Average Joe says, did you know United Healthcare employs 10% of the U.S. medical workforce? I did not know that, Average Joe. John Abbott says, yesterday I saw a teaser for the Jonas Brothers being on Jimmy Fallon and realized that the eldest Jonas brother is looking a bit like Luigi. Is Luigi a fall guy? Was it really a Jonas brother? Greatest plot twist in American history. Please, God, let that be true. Boy, oh boy, would that be fun. TikTok says, how does a poor guy like me become rich? TikTok, oh no, I'm having some connection issues over on TikTok. Let me see here. Okay, we're back. We're back. There are not a lot of mechanisms in America for poor people to become rich. We have very bad. I forget what's the term for for how easy it is for basically to do that. There's an expression, there's a term for it, but I forget what it is. So yeah, I would say best case scenario, find a country that is a better that. You try winning the lottery. But yeah, the mechanisms by which a person can become rich when they are poor are, becoming fewer and fewer every day, unfortunately. Okay, thank you, Kate the Great. Ham says, "Can I get on a call to debate?" Potentially, Ham. Let me get through a couple more of these. Let me get through a couple of more of these comments here. But yeah, I would love to discuss. But I should clarify that I don't do debates. All right, like I'm not here to argue with you about whether or not Reagan was a good president. But maybe there are things that I know he's done that you don't know he's done, or maybe there are things that we both know that he's done that I think are good, that I think are bad, and you think are good, and we can kind of get into that stuff. Okay, John G. Fisher says the Democrats have held office for 12 of the last 17 years. That is an extremely misleading statistic, Josh G. Fishin. So are you here just to spread misinformation, or are you actually here to engage in good faith? Let me know. Boy, what the fuss says, why no one ever asked why the policies target certain groups of people, yet the world is full of problems. I'd love to answer that question. Can you clean it up a little bit? Because I'm not 100% sure what you are asking there. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach my most recent gift goal. Jewelry with Power, Spiritually Sexy, Triscafon, and Sylvie B. Doleo. Thank you very much. Okay. Zevin7 Zack Attack, great to see you again. Says, what's the difference between a socialist and democratic socialist? Didn't I not answer that question for you yesterday? I know I talked about that yesterday, and I'm pretty sure it was you that asked it. So let me know, my guy. Okay, let's see here. Pizza Pimp says, if you are any color but white, you have a better chance of receiving a business loan. I do not believe that is accurate, Pizza Pimp. Authentically Her says, bot. Are you calling me a bot? Are you saying you're a bot? What's going on there? So Zack Attack, the difference between socialism and a democratic socialist is socialism. It's a little bit more of an all-encompassing version of what a democratic socialist wants. So if paved roads are socialism because we are paying tax dollars in order to fund a thing that benefits everybody, then a socialist would say, then everything should be like that. Like food should be free, and we just pay a certain amount of money every year to make sure that everybody has access to food. And you should be able to just get a TV because electronics companies will be government run and we will just fund them with taxpayer dollars. It's a little extreme. And so, I don't know a lot of people who would advocate for that level of, like government control over industries. But there are certain industries where it just makes sense, like healthcare, of course. Like it makes a lot more sense for the government to run healthcare than private industry. A democratic socialist is somebody that sees the value of government-run programs and says we should have more of that. Like health insurance should not be something that we need to, research and battle for in the free market because it's too complicated. And if I get shot, I don't have time to Google, the best, most affordable doctor to remove my bullet that also is, somebody who's not going to murder me on the operating table. Education is another thing. Housing is another thing where these things are so essential. Like we cannot let private industry exploit them because we need them, like we need water, we need an education, we need healthcare. And so let's have a little bit more of that. There are other policies that democratic socialists advocate for that don't have anything to do with socialism. And so that's where I tend to describe myself more as a progressive Democrat than a democratic socialist, because I also care about things like the environment and, gun safety and decreasing crime and, reducing income inequality, taxing the rich, and having socialized medicine are only part of my political beliefs. So yeah, that's generally it. I don't know how much daylight there is between a democratic socialist and a progressive Democrat, but because I don't just focus on the socialism part of it, I prefer to describe myself that way. All right, and thank you to everybody who helped me reach my 6th gift goal. Space Plum has pointed out that lotteries are there to exploit the poor and not to help them, and Space Plum is 100% right about that. I was being a little snarky and silly when I said try playing the lottery, but he's 100% right that the lottery is exploitative and we should not be supporting it. And Spiritually Sexy, Muzz King, Jewel with Power, and Melody. Thank you very much for helping me reach my most recent gift goal. Jago Vargas says, is the Trump administration still helping Ukraine? They are, but it is a minute by minute developing story. I believe we sent them the most recent shipment of money and weapons, but I don't know where we're at in the negotiations. We have not fully thrown the Ukraine under the bus, but we also have not fully committed to ensuring their security going forward. Excuse me. Yeah, it is a it's still it's an ongoing thing, so we're not really sure what's going on there. Authentically Her says, what about these who advocate owning our labor? Honestly, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Authentically Her, can you clean up that question and let me know? Okay. Down to Drone says, SNAP is socialism, EMS is socialism, funding the world's military is socialism. Yeah, that's generally pretty accurate. Zachatek says, awesome, I'm a democratic socialist, just didn't know where that distinction was. Zachatek, that's what makes things like this difficult, is because a lot of people have a lot of different definitions for things. Like one of my regulars recommended this Jimmy Carr clip where he was kind of like tearing down the idea of communism in favor of capitalism. And I like Jimmy Carr, but Jimmy Carr was defining communism completely differently than how I define communism. Like he was using the I forget the expression, but it's like to each their necessity, to each their what they can do the best. Basically saying like the government decides what job you have and how much food you get. But the definition of communism that I use is the workers owning the means of production. And so, we have to be really specific about these definitions, because you might be talking to somebody who thinks that a democratic socialist wants the kind of government that they have in Cuba or in Russia. Spiritually Sexy, Triska, Drew with Power, and Mellow Melody, thank you again. Let's pop things up a little bit. Star says, no, communism is a moneyless, classless, stateless society. That's one definition, Star, and I don't know how close we are as a society to achieving something like that. But I believe, why don't we start with employee-owned companies? That seems like a nice compromise, to start off with. Okay, let's see here. We already did the 10. We already did the 5. Yeah, let's do that again. Okay, East Meets Westy Bestie says, we know those are both examples of communism. Yeah, they're totally valid definitions, Hayfieholic says, I think the Democrats need to target older audiences too, not just the youth. Do you agree? So right now, the Democrats have a better track record with the elderly than they do with the young. And there's a couple of interesting reasons for this. Like, a progressive generation has grown up. The Republican Party has moved too far to the right for a lot of people who would otherwise be voting for them. There was a massive investment by the right in invading youth spaces like video game lobbying and the manosphere, podcast sphere, and shit like that. And so where we see a little bit of a demographic switch there, where a lot of older voters are trending Democratic and a lot of younger males are trending Republican. So yeah, it's interesting. I believe that Democrats looking to reach out to young voters is a smart thing to do right now, because it's better for them as a party, but it's also better for those young men. Like the manosphere right-wing masculine world is toxic. Like, it's terrible. It's bad for them. And it's bad for culture and community and the country, So, yeah, just benefits everybody by bringing those young men back into a better world. Okay, Average Joe says, can I give an example of how predatory Republican-run state legislatures are? Texas accounts for about 7% of all U.S. payday loans, yet account for over 20% of fees collected. And yet Texas only charges payday loan companies 0.75% in taxes. Yeah, that's fucking disgusting, man. Texas has a regressive tax structure where poor people pay more than rich people. And that is, payday loans is a prime example of that. Okay, Josh G. Fishing says, $33 billion in October. Do you think it's smart to cut non-domestic tariff items to lower costs? I mean, it's complicated, Josh, because the tariff war that Donald Trump has started has increased costs of goods. It has brought in a bunch of money, but it has brought in a bunch of money from Americans. Like, we are paying more in taxes now because of the tariffs. So should we get rid of some non-domestic tariffs to lower costs? Yeah, 100%. But we're also in the middle of a trade war right now. And so, like, what damage has already been done? Like, we need to start like having good faith negotiations with our trading partners so that they recognize that they're not going to get slapped with a bunch of fucking tariffs just because they ran an ad with Reagan's voice in it. Like, yeah, it's like Trump has fucked this up so badly that now it is going to take teams of people to fix it. And so I don't think it's as simple as saying we should cut non-domestic tariffs to lower costs. Like, we 100% should. But now, what we're still going to have an uneven trade relationship. Damage has been done that needs to get fixed. Moondoggle says, politics are boring. Why do you talk about them? I don't think they're boring at all. It's real people's lives that are at stake, Moondoggle. And so I think it is important that people are more educated and involved in politics so that we can have a better government and people like me and you can have better lives. Okay, John G. Fishing says, can you give an example of what items have gone up from tariffs? I'm still paying the same amount. I don't have that information off the top of my head, Josh G. Fishing, but if you send me a DM or you email me through my website, I will happily give you a full breakdown there. Let's see here. Mellow Melody says, I love politics, just not your group, but I guess. I'm not sure what that means, Mellow. Okay. Authentically Her says, we need to be informed. Electricity is up 11%. Yes, electricity costs are up because the Trump administration is not regulating AI companies building data centers in American cities and then subsidizing the costs of all the extra electricity that they're draining up throughout those districts. We're paying for OpenAI to make billions of dollars. We are paying for Sam Altman to be a wealthy person. We're paying more for electricity so that he can be rich. We might as well just fucking hand it to him. Like, that is how direct it is coming out of our wallets and into his. Alrighty. Mellow Melody. So sorry, that was more of a reply. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, Average Joe says, can I also offer a critique regarding all the semantics about definitions? Why don't you just establish a baseline Wikipedia definition and work with that? I guess the reason why I wouldn't do that is because there's too many languages is a moving target, and there are too many people who think too many things about too many words. And so, in lieu of trying to get the world to agree that this is what this means, I think it's probably better, although maybe not easier, to just dig into what all those words mean when they come up. What's up, Willie? Good to see you again. Authentically Her says, energy is also up due to green cuts. Yes, Donald Trump is on a activist agenda to eliminate green energy projects that are like 99% finished, and we're revitalizing small towns with good, clean, high-paying jobs just because he wants to increase profits for his coal and oil buddies. It is so fucking stupid. It is so fucking stupid. We are not saving taxpayer dollars on wind and solar farms that were already basically 100% built. Closing them down does fucking nothing except make fossil fuel industry barons fucking richer. And it also makes all of our health worse and our electricity costs going up. It's so fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Like, I can't handle it. All right, Hammy says, I'm 14 and I am learning about politics. I have learned a lot and I don't support Trump or Kamala. Hammy, you're 14 years old and you want to get into a political debate with me? Hammy, is that real? Are you really a 14-year-old? I mean, I'm glad that you're involved in politics. If you're 14 years old, you should not know about Ronald Reagan. That's bananas. That is bananas. Like, I applaud you being interested in these, high level topics, but I didn't have strong opinions about Nixon when I was your age, and I think that's probably the analogy. Actually, no, those Nixon and Reagan are probably too close together. It's probably have to be Lyndon B. Johnson for that to be the right difference in age. But god damn, man. Oh boy, Average Joe says, wouldn't it then just be their problem for being incapable of accepting reality? But again, it's like, whose definition of reality? Yeah. Language is a moving target. It is constantly evolving. I used to have a podcast with two of my stand-up buddies where we would work on new jokes together. And one of the last episodes that we did, we were just clearing up misunderstandings that we were having with each other. And we knew each other really well. We were excellent friends, and things were still falling through the cracks. And I had like a hyperbolic and meant to be funny meltdown on the stream where I was like, even people like us who know each other and love each other and understand each other, we can still have these misunderstandings, so like we have to be so much more empathetic to what other people are saying and thinking, because even with people like us, it can happen, yeah, it's one of the last episodes of the Is This Anything podcast, if anybody wants to go watch that happen in real time, Oh, yay. Saucy Nico says, how should we deal with neoliberals and their desire to deregulate corporations? So a little, nit that I would pick about that question is that I don't know if neoliberals desire to deregulate corporations the way that Republicans desire to deregulate corporations, but they are, like, by definition, they are more business and billionaire friendly. So the way that you deal with that is you vote against them in the primary, but recognize that better is better and worse is worse. So if you have a neoliberal Democrat running against a Republican, you are still going to get better regulations coming out of the neoliberal than you are from the Republican. Shork says, what do you think of the Trump accounts for the kids? I haven't read up on it yet. I saw the headline. With everything where Trump is concerned, you can just, it's grift. Like, that he is doing this to put money in his pockets. And so, that's the shorthand. I don't have any specifics for you at the moment, unfortunately. Hey, Feeholic says, need to go now. Looking forward to watching you live tomorrow. Thank you, Hey, Feeholic. I never got your answer on why you're Republican but not a Democrat. Are you also 14? I'm really excited about learning this stuff. All right, Abraham Zelensky says, what is one defining characteristic between a Republican and Democrats? Republicans cut taxes for the billionaire class. Democrats cut taxes for the 99% and increase taxes for the billionaire class. Anthony Francis says, why has his net worth gone down? Anthony Francis, I don't know. Is this something that you really believe? Or are you just here to spread misinformation? I want to be as nice as possible about this, but Donald Trump has made himself so unbelievably more rich being president than before he was president. Anthony Francis says it's been verified. Yeah, no, that's not true, Anthony Francis. He's made $3 billion just this year being president. So yeah, that's not accurate at all. Anthony Francis. You seem kind of sus, Anthony, so I'm not going to boot you just yet, but just let you know, unless you engage in good faith and don't just oh, okay, yeah, we got another question from Anthony Francis. How do you know how much he has made? It's been reported on. It's been widely reported I mean, he has a crypto coin, and World Liberty Financial, which is the company that handles his cryptocurrencies, plural, is reporting all of their profits and shit like that. And so, and we know that like the Saudis invested $2 billion in this crypto coin, and that's the reason why we were selling them the most advanced AI chips on the market so that they can sell them to China. You know, it's like straight. There are people who are buying his crypto coins so that they get pardons, like the Binance guy. You know, gave him I don't know how many millions of dollars through his crypto coin so that he could be pardoned for his crimes. Anthony Francis, how do those who have been reported on are accurate? You know, the way that you tell if a news story is accurate is if you see it is being reported by multiple sources. And so, you know, make sure that you're not just getting your news from right-wing sources or left-wing sources. You need to kind of look at everything. Team Money says, look up what presidents had before office and after. Anthony Francis says, so Forbes lying? I mean, I don't know what story you're referring to, but there is absolutely zero question that Donald Trump has made himself exponentially wealthier being president than not being president. Coy says, I support Trump. That's a real bummer, Coy. Why do you support Trump? Let's see here. Spider Hulk says, what's the course of action for conservatives who don't feel represented by either side? I would say, you know, politics is not about finding the politicians that you agree with 100%, but finding the ones that are closest to what you want them to do. And so, you know, vote for the people that you like in the primary, you know, and then if that person does not win the primary, look at the Democrat and the Republican that won their primaries and see which one of these do I align with more, and then you vote for that one. Dro says, how rich has Trump's family gotten? Billions. I think a low estimate would be like $4 billion is how much richer they have become just this year, not including his first term. Anthony Francis says, ChatGPT says Trump was worth $3.5 billion when elected. He's worth 2.3 now. ChatGPT is not accurate, Anthony Francis. In fact, I just saw an article about that. Let me look that up for you real quick. Let's see here. Where are we? I literally just saw it. Yeah, there was a study that was just done. I'm trying to find the actual article. AI chatbots used inaccurate information to change people's political opinions. Study finds. So there you go, Anthony Francis. Spider Hulk says, there's so many that say one thing I love, then turn around and say something I think is brain dead. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Okay, East meets Westy Bessie says, voting is like dating. You can try them out and ghost them later, but you're not married in either. That is accurate. Okay, Blank says, has party choice always been as socially dividing as it is today? Seems very touchy of a subject. You know, Blank, I don't think it is. Like, I think there are probably periods in history where, you know, we had equal or worse political rhetoric, but I do believe that politics was not as divisive amongst the voters as it is right now. You know, you had, you know, in the 70s through the 90s, probably, Republicans voting for bills that were created by Democrats and vice versa. What we're seeing right now is a systemic plot to get voters to think that other voters are their enemy. And they're doing this through social media and right-wing media, you know, billionaire-funded propaganda, basically. And so I encourage everybody to not you know, take that bait, and to recognize that other voters are not our enemy, but instead the billionaire class and the Republican Party that is working with them to fuck us all over are our enemy, and that we should do everything that we can to remove them from power. Obviously, I don't condone any kind of like violence or property destruction, but, you know, voting, political activism, talking to people, there's a lot of work that we can do to take that power away from them. Alrighty, RK says, I just asked chat and says Trump is worth between 6 and 7.3 billion. Well, isn't that interesting? Tattoo Tom says, don't say that there was a report about Trump's net worth unless you can tell us where to find it. Okay, I'll give it a Google. Let's see here. A paper published in the journal Science found that chatbots become more persuasive when they share large amounts of information. Very good at changing people's political opinions. and are particularly persuasive when they use inaccurate information. So there you go. Give it a Google. Sir Ravello says Civil War, World War III, or Holy War, which comes first? Hopefully, none of them. Aaron Gregory says, remember who the real enemy is, Katniss. I get the reference. I don't know specifically what they are referring to, you know? Okay. We are at exactly an hour right now, everybody. Short says from Forbes, Trump added $3 billion over the last year, leveraging the presidency for profit. So yeah, are you still here, Anthony Francis? Are you being swayed by any of this new information? I'm not trying to turn you into an AOC progressive, but maybe we can just agree on the shared reality that Donald Trump has exploited the presidency for profits. That seems like a really easy one for us to agree on, because it's widely reported, and we can kind of see the mechanisms, very specifically how he has done it. He's not hiding it. I suspect you're not here anymore because I don't think that you're here in good faith, trying to learn new things. Okay, Tristan Harris says, what's more likely for Trump, impeachment or passing away? I think passing away is much more impeachment is passing away is more likely until we get to 26, and if Democrats win the House, then impeachment becomes basically a foregone conclusion. Mike says, any updates on how every single swing state went in 2024? I haven't gotten any updates on the Rockland County case. Until we get that information, then we have to assume that that was a free and fair election. Ledger G Balance says, people like certainty and are averse to nuance. Generally, I think. Pillager says, when did being a liberal become a thing, Republicans, rather than what they stand for? I think you're missing a couple of words there, Pillager. Let me know. Michael Gregg says, what percentage of your vote goes to the economy versus social policy? Michael Gregg, I am in the very fortunate position. Alrighty. Oh no, looks like we're having some connection issues over on Restream. Okay, Legacy Balances. That's why AI is so successful. It gives straight answers with a little news. That is accurate, yeah. Boring 2024 says, and your chances of impeachment about zero. Like me being impeached? Yeah, because I don't have a job where I can be impeached, And Neem, great to see you again, says Senate potential, they need both houses. So they actually don't need both for impeachment, but they do need both for removing him from office. But the bar for removing him is really, really high. Like Democrats would have to win every single Senate seat that is up for re-election right now. It's mathematically possible, but statistically extremely unlikely. I say let's go for it. I say let's be competitive in all those races and do the work. Like if you're living in a red state and there's a Democrat who's up for Senate in 26, fucking do the work, man. Try to get them elected. See what you can do. But yeah, I would say that it's very unlikely that he gets removed from office with, even if Democrats take back the Senate, it is unlikely that they will get enough seats. Excuse me. Enough seats to actually remove him. Okay, Tristan Harris says, would you be in favor of a ranked choice voting system for federal elections? 100%. Ranked choice voting is a really good system. It's not perfect. Like we still got Eric Adams in New York, and we had ranked choice voting for that election. But it's definitely better, and it opens up the political process to other parties. The Republican Party is currently trying to make ranked choice voting illegal federally, and the Democratic Party is thinking about including ranked choice voting in their primaries in either 26 or 28 or both. So yeah, if you want that, you should vote for Democrats. Patty Wagon says, what type of voting? Ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is saying you don't have to pick between just two. You can vote like my number one choice would be Bernie Sanders. My number two choice would be Elizabeth Warren. My number three choice would be this person. And then, the aggregate is kind of, added together to see who the winner is. MTNE Grow says, RUR, no IED. Patty Wagon says, I like that. I like that too. Anima says, what were the concrete penalties for impeachment? He got to claim persecution. I think he is a witch. Oh no, John Abbott said that the Rockland County case was dismissed a week ago. That fucking sucks. Ugh. I gotta look into that because that really fucking pisses me off. We got to figure out what the deal was with that. I wonder if it was a technicality. I wonder if there was no there. Like, we really got to figure that shit out, East meets Westy says, you have to eat celery to get rid of your indigestion. It helps instantly. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Eats meets Westy. Maybe I will go grab some celery and have it after my meals. We'll see what happens. Bloomberg Pottery says, Rockland County, New York. Yes, that is the case I was referring to. Adrian says, do you agree that Democratic Socialists are equivalent to Northerners wanting gradual abolition? No, I do not agree with that, Adrian. By many metrics, lots of people would say that social democrats are the extreme version and that neoliberals are the gradual abolition party. I know that there are some people on the far left who think that even democratic socialists aren't far enough left. There are some people who think that AOC is basically a Republican in any other country. I find that to be a little hyperbolic and inaccurate, but, I'm not here to say that anybody's political beliefs are bad, but I would just love to discuss the details and try to, try to, agree on a shared reality. And my apologies to all my regulars who've had to listen to me fucking burp at the end of all of my live streams. Modern Tech Life says, do you feel that the left has lost touch with the rest of the world? I do not. Okay. Alrighty. Let's see here. So yeah, concrete penalties for impeachment, Anima. Obviously, we know the first two. It was, quid pro quo with Ukraine, and then the second one was January 6th. Going forward, there's 1,000. There's like the cryptocurrency, the Venezuela strikes, ISIS actions, alligator Auschwitz, the tariff policy. There are just a ton. The pardons, all the pardons that are directly linked to people giving him money, like that's an impeachable offense right there. There's dozens of reasons why he could be impeached. Pardons. Hallow says, is it all the fault of wall kissers? No, it is not. All right, scrolling down to the very bottom. Modern Tech Life says, never mind, you have answered my questions. Cool, sweet. Jakey Flaky says, just saw your name on the Epstein list. I'm not on that list. I am on the list of dudes that have fucked your mom. Okay. Tristan Harris says, if 2026 turns out for Democrats, do you think there will be consequences for ICE? Yes, Tristan, but they will be limited. Like what we'll be able to accomplish is going to be limited by Donald Trump, Republicans in the Senate, and an extremely right-wing Supreme Court. So, there will be more work that needs to be done to hold these people accountable, but it will be an excellent first start. And we will start to see, at the very least, some hearings with real teeth on them, bringing these issues to the American people. Thank you, Mia. I appreciate that. Mel, what's up? Good to see you again. Any coincidence in January 6th bomber being caught today? Oh, I haven't read anything about that. I know that there's a common theme for a lot of political rhetoric saying that whatever Trump is doing is a distraction from X, Y, or Z. But I think that number one, that narrative is a little short-sighted. Things can be really, really bad and also a distraction. Like they can be the point and also the distraction. And also, I haven't looked into that case yet, so I'm not really sure. What do you call it? I'm not really sure what the details are. Adrian says, neoliberals are as far left as socialist Dems, both uphold the capitalist system of exploitation. I do not agree with that at all, Adrian. There are substantive differences between neoliberals and democratic socialists. We use different words for these things. You could say centrist Democrats versus progressive Democrats. But yeah, 100%. The financial policies of democratic socialists are much closer to addressing the exploitation of the capitalist system than neoliberals are. Maybe not far enough for you. Like maybe you're like a hardcore socialist, in which case we could have a different conversation about whether or not a progressive democratic government versus a socialist government would be better. But my general philosophy is that better is better and worse is worse. And so, in lieu of having any hardcore socialist to vote for, you should still vote for progressive Democrats. And if the progressive Democrat doesn't win the primary, you should vote for the neoliberal, because the neoliberal is going to be better than the Republican will be. Short says neolibs are trickle-down apologists. That is very, very well said, Short. And that is no sarcasm at all. Like, that is very well said. I like that. All right, everybody, we are at 1 hour and 10, so we're going to start wrapping things up. Get your final questions in. Thank you, everybody who was here. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling with the costs of living crisis. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. I have a store that you can buy things from. Links to both of those things are in my bio. You can also send gifts and become subscribers and super fans on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and all the various channels. If you want a free way to support me financially, and you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, if you subscribe to my Twitch channel and using your Amazon Prime account, I get $2 and it costs you $0. And thank you very much to Triska and Lauren for being a part of that Amazon Prime crew. I appreciate that support. And thank you also to my super fans on TikTok, Susie, Sean, Dean, and Hot Sauce, and my patrons, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on the live stream, or something comes up later that you want to ask me about, do not be shy. I love it when people reach out. You can hit me up. My DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up via my Discord channel. If I don't see your message on one of those, you feel free to message on another one, because things do sometimes get lost in the sauce. But I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to help you to become more informed and involved, the two I's. So if I can be that resource for you, I want to be. So use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. The Discord is one of my favorite resources right now, because in addition to being a way to get in touch, you can also form a community with the other people there. And also there are great recommendations for books and podcasts and organizations that you should 100% be volunteering your time and money to. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea for everybody listening here to do the work, because it is only with us doing the work that we can have a better country. How much of a better country do you want to have depends on how much work and how many people doing the work we can make happen. How many people can we recruit? How many people can we talk to about these issues? How many people can we get on the same page? My friends, my 14-year-old friend, Hammy, like, I can't wait to discuss more with Hammy. So we got one more person who's potentially on team good person. So yeah, let's all fucking do the work, guys, and let's try to do the work in real life. That's why I think Swing Left's new initiative, Ground Truth, is so perfect, is because it is the in-person political deep canvassing that I think we should all be doing. Lady Lisa, hello, good to see you again. Adrian said, regardless of who wins, true liberation won't be achieved unless we smash the capitalist system. So Adrian, hold on a second. Boring says, tell me what Democrats have done on immigration. So a lot of things, Boring. The Democratic Party was part of a movement to try to clean up the pathway to citizenship. They also hired more immigration and asylum judges in order to try to make that problem, make the backlog not a problem anymore. They were working with countries south of the border to try to solve the systemic reasons for immigration. And they even worked with Republicans to try to write a bill that would address all of the remaining issues. And the bill was a compromise bill. There was a lot of stuff in there for Republicans and a little stuff in there for Democrats. And, it was so friendly to Republicans that there were some Democrats like AOC who were like, this is bad. Like, we should go back to the bargaining table. And while both parties were ready to sign this bipartisan immigration bill, Donald Trump called up the Republicans in the Senate and said, don't vote for that bill that you just wrote, because I want immigration to stay a problem so that I can win in 2024. And if you are willing to keep a problem for your own political, headwinds, then you have zero credibility on this issue. So yeah, Democrats on immigration every single fucking day. So yeah, Adrian, he's still here. All capitalists serving Dems have suddenly deported more immigrants than Republicans. So Adrian, I'm starting to feel like you are not here in good faith, Adrian. Like, it seems like you have an agenda that you are pushing as opposed to engaging in good faith. Like, you haven't really responded to any of the things. I mean, you actually kind of have. So, but let me just say this, Adrian. I have interacted with a lot of people who have similar philosophies to you, who say things like, true liberation won't be achieved unless we smash the capitalist system. And the thing that I see, the common thread that I see with people who advocate for narratives like that is that they don't want to do anything. They're just waiting for the revolution to start and hope that the march is happening right outside their door and then they can go join it. So while you might poo-poo things that you would describe as incrementalism, to me, I call it the work. I say we get better or we get worse. And we don't get to good or perfect until we get to better. I would love for you to be a part of this coalition. I would love for you to do some of this work with me. And whether our final target is hardcore socialism like you're advocating for, or democratic socialism like I'm advocating for, we're still going in the same fucking direction, man. Like, we are still on the same highway together. And you refusing to work with people like me is making our collective work, our collective goal, further and further away. Did you hear any of that? Does any of that register with you? Let me know in the chat. All right. Ted says, do you think the Democrats have moved left from the 90s and the Republicans have moved right? I mean, the Republicans have definitely moved right. And there are people in the Democratic Party right now that you and I would describe as like centrist corporate Democrats who are probably exactly as far to the left as they were in the 90s. And then there's a wing of the Democratic Party that is also further to the left than Democrats were in the 90s. Adrian says, I've organized within my own area and joined my working union. I'm not opposed to a coalition. All right, but do you understand how rhetoric like what you said about how no progress will happen until we smash the capitalist system might read as don't do the things that I'm advocating for, Adrian? Carlea says, what do you think about presidential pardons? I'm against them. Alex Sassone says, Trump is king. That's not accurate. Okay. Lisa Ann says, the bill that would let everyone still come. That is not accurate, Lisa Ann. There were a lot more concessions to Republicans than concessions to Democrats in that bill, so that is inaccurate. Lady Lisa says, is it true that Trump administration fired over 100 immigration judges? It is true. I don't know what the exact number is, but they are firing immigration and asylum judges where we need more. So they're making the backlog worse. Where the Trump administration, in my opinion, has also lost credibility in immigration is, number one, they are enabling ICE to act inhumanely and illegally. Deporting people who are legal residents is barbaric. Sending people to concentration camps in El Salvador is barbaric. And they're not solving the problem. So all they're doing is being cruel for no reason. So, yeah, zero credibility there. He's trying to replace immigration judges with quote unquote deportation judges. They are offering $200K for those positions, and they are saying that you can work from home. So what does that job look like? It is just logging on and saying no deport, no deport, no deport, no deport. It's rubber stamping deportations. It's fucking disgusting. Alrighty, let's see here. Saucy Nico says, are Republicans not also considered neoliberals? There might be some. There might be some like centrist or squishy Republicans that might fall into that umbrella, but most of them are way too far to the right to be described that way. What is essential to the neoliberal position is that yes, you are more corporate friendly and billionaire friendly, but you do believe that we need to have tax revenue coming in from the billionaire class and giant corporations. You do believe that we need some regulation to make sure that pollution isn't poisoning our air and water and food and medicines, you know. Okay, so but where specific people would draw those lines, like, that's up to interpretation, I would say. Boring 2024 says, as a democratic socialist, what would you have as the top tax rates? I'm not really sure, Boring 2024, and I don't think that we need to decide on the perfect number right now. But how about we just say more? Like how about we just say like more than what's now? Like, because we should not have a trillionaire while there are people suffering, people who living on the street who can't afford healthcare or houses and shit like that. So more is what I would say. Hey, thank you, Saucy Nico. Blooming Pottery says, wait, what happened in Rockland County? I grew up there. So there were accusations of voting machines changing people's votes in the 2024 election. And while there are some statistical anomalies, a lot of those statistical anomalies can be explained with other polling and information that has come in. So a lot of people don't really give that theory any legitimacy. But the Rockland County case is different because Rockland County is such a small voting district. They have people who signed affidavits saying that who they voted for. So they can, hypothetically account for everybody's individual vote. And the affidavits were not matching the vote totals. And so there was a case there looking into whether or not votes were manipulated in the 2024 election. And if we found that there were, certain programs inputted into these, voting machines that actually manipulated the vote totals, that would potentially open up the entire 2024 election to, more scrutiny. And so people like me who are skeptical about the argument that votes were changed using voting machines, but open to it, given the right amount of evidence, we're watching that case being like, all right, yeah, let's see. If they prove it, then, maybe we can start looking at swing states and, potentially the 2024 election was, can be found to be invalid. But according to one of my regulars over on YouTube, John Abbott, that case was dismissed about a week ago. And I do not know why. I want to look into it because I have been following this case in the past. And so, yeah, I am very curious to see what the reason for it being dismissed was. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Everybody have an excellent Thursday. Do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.